up, everybody? It's your boy Manny here. Welcome back to the report, the NAIA Women's Basketball Podcast, episode number 57. It's national tournament time. We finally get to talk brackets, we finally get to talk upsets, Cinderellas, all that good stuff. So I'm very excited to just deep dive into it. And I'll be honest with you guys, I was kind of going back and forth on how I wanted to do this, and there was a lot of different things I wanted to do, a lot of different things I'm probably still going to think of doing literally as I'm recording, but I kind of came down to this little mini series that we're going to do starting today. Monday when you guys are watching this, basically what I'm going to do is I'm not going to give y'all a over 2 hours probably breakdown of each region, all that kind of stuff. Instead, for the next 4 days, starting today, Monday, we will be posting episodes every single day leading up to Friday when everything starts off, when it comes down to opening rounds and all that kind of stuff. So Monday, you're going to get today you're going to get the first quad and break down all of the opening rounds in that quad. And tomorrow, you get the next one, so on and so forth. It leads y'all right into Friday, leads y'all right into game day for the national tournament. Very excited to do that. As I go through it, I will probably, kind of talking myself through it, let y'all know who I like as Cinderellas, who I like as doing this, opening round matchups that I think are going to be really, really important, stuff like that. So, kind of buckle in. It's going to be a long week, but that's kind of what I had planned from the beginning, giving y'all a little bit extra content throughout the national tournament run. My biggest thing is I definitely want to, y'all know me, I definitely want to kind of add a little bit of element, a little bit of personality to all the quads. So each quad was given a nickname. Now, I'll be honest with you guys, the nickname, at first was one thing, and then as I went through the numbers and looked at the little finite things between each team, I realized, okay, there's a better name for this quad, and so I went with that. But like I mentioned, we're going to start with the Naismith Quadrant, and the Naismith Quadrant breakdown teams are as follows. Freed-Hardeman is the number one team in this region. They'll be playing Rust. Langston will be playing Bethel, Loyola, Milligan, Georgetown, Taylor, Dakota State, Grande, Concordia, Bethel, and then Rio Grande, Rochester Christian, and Cumberlands of Kentucky versus Indiana Wesleyan. We're going to go through all of these games, all 8 games. Very excited to do that. We're going to start with the first one, Freed versus Rust. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys, kind of a straightforward game here. I don't think that there's not a single 1 versus 16 that I'm very much, concerned about from the one side of things. I am more inclined to, there's really nothing. There is nothing that I can do. I think Russ had a really good season. I think Russ, being the HBCU AC champions, very much an accomplishment for them. I just feel like Freed is the number one team in the country for a reason. So there's really not too much to deep dive into it. So obviously I have Freed moving on to the next round in that one. Now, the region name that I gave the Naismith Quad, the Redemption region. The Redemption Quad. Why? Almost all the seeds, almost all the teams in this region have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder because of how their conference tournament went. And I'll deep dive into it when I get to each one, but some of them really do that. Now, again, Freed and Rust are the outliers because they were champions in their respective conference tournaments, but some of these seeds, some of these teams, a little bit different. So, and a perfect example is this next game that I'm going to talk about right now, Langston versus Bethel. Langston probably has the biggest chip on anybody's shoulders from how their conference tournament went. The only 1 seed to lose to an 8th seed or to a low seed in the first round of the conference tournament, losing to Texas Wesleyan. Very much kind of puts a little bit more of a message-sending mindset going into the first round. And they're giving Bethel, who might be the hottest team right now in the tournament, in the country, in terms of, feel, I would say. Again, the records don't really say that. They were 10-6 since January 1st. There is a 4-game winning streak in there. They were 5-2 in their last 7. So from that standpoint, it does feel a little bit, it may look a certain way, but the feel for Bethel, they had some tough games. They've had some games where they forced some of these top teams in the crossroads into overtime, into one-possession games, whatever the case is. I do believe that Bethel is very interesting. Now, I wouldn't say that their conference tournament went bad. And to be honest with you, when I say conference tournament teams that did not perform well, it's typically the higher seeds. Again, Bethel had a very solid. I knew they were going to win that first opening round matchup. I was not shocked by them doing that. It was, the second round, I didn't think it was really a good matchup with them in St. Francis. And obviously St. Francis did win that one. But Langston is the one where in this matchup, they have the chip on their shoulders 100% for how their conference tournament went, losing in the first round. Bethel, to be honest with you guys, they might be the better offensive team from a numbers standpoint. They're putting up 72 points per game compared to 67 points per game. They've doubled the amount of double-figure scores that Langston has. Bethel has 4, Langston only has 2. It's an interesting one. Now, the Langston roadmap is on defense, and that's not a problem for the Lions. That's been kind of their calling card all year. They've been a more defensive-minded team, especially because they force over 20 turnovers per game. They get a lot of extra possessions going the other way, and not to mention, they do force some teams into bad shots, force some teams into rush shots, so all that can add up into a good open court transition game throughout the 40 minutes. So that is going to be the biggest thing for Langston. Langston cannot get into an offensive matchup with Bethel. Again, Bethel, from a field standpoint, I've been saying it a lot this past month and a half, they look really, really good. They look like a team that could pull off a win here in the national tournament. Now, I'm not feeling like that. I would go Langston in this one, but my gut, I trusted my gut in the first round of the Crossroads. I trusted my gut in some of the picks and some of the games that I was looking at in the Crossroads back in the regular season. This is also a team that, again, against St. Francis at their home, at Bethel's home, I should clarify. They forced them into overtime. They lost by 1, but they had the ball with that last possession. So, but I do still think Langston comes with this victory. In every single one of these games, I'm going to give a key matchup, whether player, whether something else in the game. For this key player matchup, I'm going Tucker versus Scales. Tucker for Langston, obviously Scales for Bethel. Both are leading their teams in scoring coming into this game. Tucker's coming off of her second worst scoring game of the season, where she only had 10 versus Texas Wesleyan, but she still has had at least 10 in all but one game this season. So from an offensive standpoint, like I mentioned, that is going to be the biggest thing. I do think the defense fuels Langston's win, but the offense has to have some type of continuity for long stretches of times in this game. There cannot go a situation where you're giving up an 8-10-0 run. You can't give up any type of 0 run if you're Langston. You got to be able to continuously score buckets, and that's where Tucker comes in. She's been one of the best offensive players for Langston since she started playing earlier, about in late November. Obviously, I've seen some big-time performances from her, some big-time games, and big-time shot making. So I do believe she will be the biggest part of this Langston win from an offensive standpoint to keep them kind of floating with their heads above water until their defense kind of puts it down and puts the pedal to the metal and gets some more transition buckets, forces Bethel into some uncomfortable shots, stuff like that. For the other side of it, for Scale, she's had at least 10 in all but one of her last 11 games. So she's also had a little bit of a scoring surge in the past 11 games or so. So I do believe if she has the type of game that she's capable of having, now you've added a little more pressure to that Langston offense and the defense at the same time. Because now if Scales is getting going, that means that she's able to create for other people. She's going to create other shots through her gravity. She's probably going to be the first player on Langston's scout going into this game. So you're going to load up to her. You're going to put kind of more eyes on her, open some back doors, open some swings, some one more, some kickouts, all that kind of stuff. And now the offense is flowing a little bit better. But at the same time, it's all the other side of it is, do you let Scales maybe go off a little bit more? Maybe she gets a little close to that 20-point mark, but now it's only one player that's really kind of killing you. The rest of the team has not gotten any continuity, any flow, and they can't really hit those shots when the ball does find them. A lot of interesting dynamics there, but I do believe it comes down to these two and setting the tone for their respective teams offensively for two different reasons. Again, Scales leading Bethel's offense because that's kind of what they've been able to do. Again, really good defensive team, but their offense is kind of what sparked this second half surge in the season. And for Langston, Tucker is going to be the one to keep their, like I said, head above water in terms of offense, whether it's hitting a timely bucket. And again, to me, a timely or clutch bucket is not just a game winner as the buzzer sounds. It's a 6-0 run. The team's rolling right now. Okay, here's a bucket. Here's something to stop the bleeding, so to speak. Or they just went on a run and went up 4 points. Now we hit a big bucket. Now we keep it within 2, keep it within a possession. Those buckets are sometimes more important than the game winners at the end because you can't get to the end if you don't keep it close throughout the first 38 or so minutes. So that's kind of my breakdown of that game. I do have Langston winning. I would probably say it's a 2-possession type of game going down the stretch here. But I do think that Langston comes away with this victory and sets up a Lion versus Lions matchup in the second round of this Naismith Quad. Now, Southern States versus ACC, another one where not both teams, because again, Milligan swept the AAC, I should say, from a regular season and tournament championship standpoint. Loyola did not. Loyola got the regular season, but they were not able to get the Southern States championship in the conference tournament department. They did lose in the semifinals. Milligan's been on a tear. They've been on a tear in the AAC all year. They've been the bar, so to speak, in the AAC. They obviously are led by, on a current 10-game winning streak, led by their player of the year in the ACC, Samaj Clark. The Wolfpack have a chip on their shoulder, like I mentioned, because of how their tournament ended. They had so much momentum going into the Southern States. They were the number 1 seed. They were able to get a good, favorable matchup in the first round and able to put a little bit more pressure on them and all that kind of stuff. And you run into that one team that's kind of been their thorn on your side. It's been Loyola, William Carey, all Southern States long. And obviously William Carey got the final say as of now. So we'll see how things kind of play out. The Buffs actually match up really well with Loyola. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. When I looked at the initial, bracket and looked at all the teams, I thought to myself, I don't know if I like that matchup for Milligan. Just from a feel standpoint, I didn't like it. When I hear Loyola and I hear Milligan, I don't really feel it's a good matchup for Milligan. Deep diving into the numbers, I was like, wait a minute. They're actually, offensively, they match up pretty well. I mean, both teams average around 75 a night. Both teams have similar splits from the field 3-point line and free throw line. So I was like, okay, offensively, it's a lot better than I thought it was going to be. But defensively, that's where the problem lies for me. I just feel like Loyola's defense is on another level. They hold their opponents to 57.9 points per game. I'll give them the round of 58 opponents' points per game. Milligan's at 62 points per game. Now, I know you guys probably think, that's only 4 points. Yeah, but there's something different about seeing a team that holds someone under 60 and over 60. It just feels, sometimes as basketball players and basketball fans, I'm sure you all know, you look at the score and 79 looks a lot different than 80. I don't know why, but it just does. It feels different. So that's kind of what it looks like for me. And even still, we're talking about national tournament right now. 4 points is important. 4 points. Sometimes 4 points can feel like 20 points because you just can't get off those 4 points. And that's magnified in the national tournament, especially the opening round when jitters are high and anxiety is there. The excitement, the nervousness, all that kind of stuff is there. 4 points can feel like a lot to try and overcome. So I'm very interested to see what the Wolfpack defense is going to apply in terms of a pressure standpoint to Milligan's offense, but more so, can Milligan's defense be able to slow down Loyola's offense? That's really what this game comes down to. Wolfpack have better opponent shooting splits than Milligan across the board, meaning that Milligan's opponents are shooting better than Loyola's opponents are when those teams are playing with each other. Even from an offense side of the ball, though, Loyola is very the reason I feel like Loyola actually and Milligan match up pretty good offensively is because Loyola's top end talent, the best in this game. Not a question about it. The big three that they have is going to be a problem. But Milligan has a little bit, and that's why I'm saying Milligan has a little bit more depth than Loyola does. For Milligan, you're looking at, aside from Clark, you've got McKenna Myers, who will give you 11 along with 17 from Clark, and their next highest scorer will be Lena Lyon or Kenzie Campbell, both of which are averaging 8 a night. So you're talking about 4 players that are hovering around 10 points a night on a consistent basis. For Loyola, like I mentioned, the top end talent is a top end talent. You're talking about Odell, Thornton, and Travis. All 3 of those ladies combined, they're averaging about 43 points per game. And then you add in 8 from Sequoia Carroll, and then insert another player because I don't really know who that 4th player would be. I talked about 4 to 5 players for Milligan, and Clark, Myers, Lyon, and Campbell. So 4 players for Milligan. I really can only talk to about 3 to 4 for Loyola in terms of who I feel like is comfortably going to do it on any given night. And even still, it's really just 3 because when you look at Sequoia, she can be canceled out between either Lyon or Campbell, so it just depends. For Loyola's side on offensive things, it's more of, can somebody else push them over the hump? I think the defense is going to give Milligan fits. I do believe that. I think they fly around really very well. They're aggressive on ball, in the post, on that kind of stuff. They're going to be fine defensively. The question is, can the offense get them over the hump? Can the offense push them across that finish line to finish this game out? I do have a situation where Loyola wins this game. I do believe Loyola will win this game. But if it stays close down the stretch, now I'm a little more worried. This is one of those games, for those of you who's followed me all year, you guys know I always say, if you're the underdogs or if you're not the team that's supposed to win this game and you keep it close within the last 5 or so minutes, I've said 2 minutes typically, so the last 2 minutes. The first 38 minutes is a close game. I'm going with the underdogs for the last 2 minutes. It's happened a lot this year. So I just feel like this game should be Loyola. I do believe it will be Loyola, but Milligan will not let it be easy. This is going to be a very tight game all the way through, and if it stays close to the last 2 minutes of the game, Don't be surprised if Milligan pulls out with this victory. From my key player standpoints, I'm going Campbell versus Thornton. Why? The 3-point line is going to be an interesting player in this game. Talking about the offense side of things, and I do believe Loyola is a better defensive team than Milligan, but now the 3-point line can eliminate a lot of that stuff. And what I mean by that is Campbell, for the Buffs, is their best 3-point shooter from a percentage standpoint, and from not even from a percentage standpoint, from a total makes of the season. When you go back to the stats on every website, they're obviously going to be skewed in terms of percentages because not everybody plays a lot on that kind of stuff. So I go off makes and attempts. Are you leading the team in attempts and makes? You're definitely their best or their most high-profile 3-point shooter. I'll say that. And for Thornton for the Wolfpack. This is more of a personification matchup, though, because like I said, the 3-point line will be the interesting player in here, but I feel like those two players specifically will embody that for both teams. Campbell shoots almost 32% from the 3-point line on 37 makes for the season, and then Thornton's at about 31% on 34 makes for the season. So they're both very, very close. But why I say the 3-point line is going to be the biggest player here is because Milligan's offense is good enough to stay with Loyola's offense. If Milligan gets some more extra points at the 3-point line, if they're able to get hot, go on a little bit of a streak here, maybe hit in that first quarter, you get about 3, then you get another 2 in the second quarter, and then you add that in the second half and a little bit more over 5 total, maybe you're at 6 or 7. Now you're like, wait a minute, that's an extra, give you about 21, 24 points that maybe you weren't thinking about. You know what I mean? So now you're looking at that standpoint. And then on the flip side, if you're defense for Milligan and you go into it and you think, okay, we are not going to be able to slow down everything that Loyola has. It's one of those games where defensively you got to pick your poison. What do you want to give up and what don't you want to give up? If I'm in Milligan, I don't want to give the 3-point line. I don't want to give that percentage. That's an extra point every trip down. Let them kill you with 2s. Let them kill you with free throws, that kind of stuff, because you can go blow for blow. I think Milligan can go shot for shot with Loyola if it's not a 3-point line shot, because even if you're a great 3-point shooting team, you might go cold. You know what I'm saying? You might not be able to hit some shots. Some shots are going to rim out, all that kind of stuff. We've all been there. So you can't really rely on that too much. But if you do it to a point where we'll live with that, because on this end, we're going to get that. We're going to find our shooters. We're going to get a lot of opportunities. I think Loyola's actually going to load up a lot more to Samaj, and now she's going to be able to be a playmaker for her team. I think this is going to be a really good playmaking game for her to get her shooters going, to get her other teammates going. So I keep that in mind from a 3-point line standpoint. It's kind of the underlining theme here. Again, Loyola's defense is going to be, I think, what pushes them over the edge. But if Milligan gets hot from that 3-point line, which they have done throughout the season a couple times, now we're looking at a very interesting matchup here, because you can play great defense all you want, but if that 3-point shot is falling for your opponent, you ain't always going to be able to take that away. And they'll cool off at some point. The question is, at what point will it be, and will it matter at all? So I'm going with Loyola, but I was very close to going with Milligan for the upset here. Some of these games are going to be a little bit of a quick hits. For example, this next one, Georgetown versus Taylor. The Taylor aspect here is the team that would be the chip on their shoulder from how their conference tournament went. They lost in the first round. Obviously, I just feel like Taylor's struggling right now. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I know, when I was on the episode last week on Friday with Marcus Moeller, shout out to him. Really appreciate him for coming on. We talked about Taylor, and Taylor was that team that I think a lot of people were. Shocked is not the right word. They were the team that kind of was coming to me in terms of, hey, why is this team in on the brackets? Hey, what happens here? And I told them, yes, Taylor has not had the greatest second half of the season, but they had a great fall. Better than some of these teams that have come up to me and talked about, hey, why is Taylor in? I do believe Taylor should have been in the national tournament. Now, how they do, it's up to them. They are struggling, like I said. I don't see them winning this game. I think Georgetown has way too much momentum, and I'm not even talking about stat standpoint. This game is, y'all can see my notes. There's no numbers for this game. It is strictly a mindset type of game. Georgetown is on a great run right now. Before their most previous loss, they were on a 5-game winning streak that included Cumberlands of Kentucky, Cumberlands of Tennessee, Lindsey Wilson, Campbellsville, and Campbellsville. Like, they are on a heater. They might be Freed, Bethel. I would make an argument that they're at least the 4th best team in the Mid-South right now going into the tournament, maybe even the 3rd best team going into the tournament. I said it, right? So there is that is how good Georgetown is right now. Taylor, in the last 10 games, are 1-9. They have not really, they just haven't turned that corner yet that you kind of need. They haven't added that extra element to their game. At the same time, and everybody knows the angle I'm going to go with this, it don't matter. You're in. You're in. So if you're in, you got 40 minutes. What you do with those 40 minutes is up to you. I think Taylor is not given a second chance here, but they're given an opportunity to silence a lot of critics. A lot of critics. Hand up, me too. Me too. I don't think Taylor's going to win this game. I believe Georgetown comes in. I believe Georgetown handles business. I believe they win this one pretty handily too. But at the same time, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Georgetown's the better team. But for 40 minutes on a Friday, anything can happen, right? So keep that in mind as we kind of go through these next couple of days, as we go through these next couple of games, or as we go through these next couple of days going into this game. I'm not going with Taylor because they just have not been good the past month, the past semester, the past spring season, all that. I can't go with that. Even if someone were to throw it out in the comments, oh, but they're putting up this many points, they're shooting this, whatever. Numbers don't always say it. And I've seen it too much. I've seen too much of the games to think I can't get there. Now, they put up this upset. We'll talk about it. I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon and say, oh, Taylor's going to do a little bit of a run here because they beat Georgetown. No, because they still got to go through a couple more teams before I even get to thinking that. All I want to see is the Taylor that I saw in the fall. The Taylor that was number one in the crossroads for a good 2 months. The Taylor that was out there beating Indiana Tech. Taylor that was out there upsetting teams. That Taylor's the Taylor I want to see. I don't want to see the Taylor that I feel like is not performing to their standards, to their potential for the past few weeks. I see that Taylor, we're going to be for a dogfight. Even if that Taylor shows up, though, I do think Georgetown still wins this game, but that will be the Taylor that we all expected to be in the national tournament, that I expected to be in the national tournament in the fall. That, again, they're here. What you do with it is now up to you. Going over to the next game, Dakota State versus Grandview. Now, both teams could be on that mark of redemption because, I think it leans more so to Dakota State, again, the higher seed, but they both can make an argument for Grandview lost in the semifinals of the Heart, and then obviously DSU lost in the championship game of the Frontier. Close one against Montana Tech. This game can come down to one stat, y'all: rebounds. Rebounds are going to be the biggest one for this game. Vikings are losing the rebound battle for the season by 0.2. You might say, man, it's only 0.2. It's not even one rebound a game. Yeah, but when you're playing a team in Dakota State who is winning the rebound battle by 5, that's going to be hard to overcome. It's going to be hard to overcome. And oftentimes when we talk about the rebound battle, the battle we're always going to really talk about is the offensive rebound, because Dakota State, is almost averaging 14 offensive rebounds per game. Grandview's at 10. Again, the next month, the entire month of March, is going to be about details, about inches. 4 extra points, 4 extra rebounds in any game is going to matter more than people may think. Well, certain people may think. Whether it's 4 free throws, whether it's 4 mid-range buckets, that's 4 points, 8 points, or if it's 4 threes, whatever it is, those extra possessions are going to add up throughout a game, especially in the national tournament. So it's going to come down to just who can be more physical, who can hit first, pursue the basketball, who can hold their opponents to one shot only, and that on the other end, get as many second chance opportunities as possible, get second, third, fourth, because that is demoralizing if you're a defense. If you're out there working for 29 seconds and you can't get that offensive rebound, gut punch. You're working for another 20 seconds. You can't get that defensive rebound, gut punch. You're working, and then you finally maybe have it, but they get another one, and they get the foul, plus the and one, body blow. Now you do that for a full 40 minutes, it is going to wear you down. I call it the 2K rule. All right, if you ever play 2K, what is the rule? If you don't get the first rebound, the CPU gets it, tough. You might get away with the second one, but if they get that one, that third one is going to end in a bucket, a foul, or both, every single time. It's a 2K rule. Go play 2K and watch. That is going to be the synonymous, analogy for this game. Whoever controls that rebound battle the most, because again, Dakota State's only winning by 5, right? So it's not like they're averaging, out rebounding their opponents by 10, which some of these teams in the national tournament are. It's manageable, but it's on Grandview to try and go out there and really put that focused on rebounding the ball, boxing out, understanding that you cannot ball watch. The ball's always going to find whoever is not being boxed out. It's just how the game works. They got to be able to hunker down and have that point of emphasis the entire 40 minutes. Not 39 minutes, not 39 minutes and 30 seconds. You got to do the full 40 if you want to have a chance at staying in it down the stretch in the late one. For my key player matchup, I'm going Teal and Ottman. Tabor Teal for Dakota State is averaging 10 rebounds a night, 2 offensive rebounds. The reason I bring up the rebounds, because I know I talked about offense just now and how, second chance opportunities, very important, yada, whatever. But the defensive side of the ball is very, very important from a rebounding standpoint because, like I just mentioned, if I give up 3 offensive rebounds, that means that someone on my team cannot go out and close out the possession. Grab that rebound. That's how you close out the defensive possession. Rebounding the defensive shot. You cannot play good defense and then expect the ball to just land in your hands. Because now that's not how it works. You can play great for 29 seconds, but if you can't get that rebound, you got to do it all over again. Again, that wears you down over a full 40-minute game. On one side of the ball, like I said, she's controlling the opponent's ability to shoot extra shots, have extra opportunities, because she's always the one cleaning up the defensive glass. And on the other end, like I mentioned, she's able to get some second chance opportunities for herself, for her teammates, kick out for 3. She's got plenty of shooters around her. She's going to be a very important player in this game. She might have a really good assist game because of that. Because she gets second chance opportunities, she might be able to kick out to some of her players on the perimeter and get some clean looks. The other part of it on the defensive rebound side of things, she gets that rebound, she can handle the rock. She can go down in transition, push the ball herself. She doesn't need a point guard to do that if she doesn't want to. So now you add in that element as well to where she might be able to get downhill, get in transition. No one stops the ball, easy bucket. They do stop the ball early. Now I'm kicking it back out to my shooters. So I think Tabor Teal is going to be a very important player for the Trojans, which she has been all year. Again, one of the best players in the country. But that is the type of impact I feel like, or where I see her impact really being felt throughout the game. For the Vikings, the reason I went with Ottman is because you figure she's going to be the one that's kind of matched up with her in terms of, defensive assignment and that kind of stuff. And so her role should be not have a single rebound. Ottman should have not a single rebound, defense or offense. Maybe offense, but not defensive. And what I mean by that is she should be so focused on boxing out Tabor that someone else should be getting the rebounds. The guards got to come down. The forwards got to make sure that they're helping as well. She should not have to be the one that needs to box out one of the best rebounding players in the country and then still go after the ball itself. That's too much to ask for her. Now, she will have to do that at times, and that's what it takes to win a national tournament game. But she's going to need a more gang mindset rebounding approach from her other 4 teammates on the court whenever she's out there. Because it's going to be a lot to try and ask of her to hold off Tabor, especially on the offense side of things, and still be able to try and get something out of it. On the other side, she has to make sure that Tabor is feeling her presence from a crashing of the offensive rebound. If Tabor is going to easily get some defensive rebounds and push, it's not doing anything for her. She's going to get her in rhythm, going to get her flowing. That's not what you want. But if she's able to get, if she doesn't get it, but if you make Tabor have to move a little bit extra, if you make her have to really worry about you getting down there and maybe even tipping the ball out to one of your teammates, whatever the case is, now the game can be a little bit more interesting down the stretch here. Now you've put some more responsibility and some more of a wear down, bruiser type of thing to the game, to where now she's not going to be as comfortable going into the offensive side of the ball. She might even get tired, might fall asleep, whatever the case is, because she's been doing it for so long. So I do think Ottman, from a matchup standpoint, is going to be a very important player for Grandview in this one. I do have Dakota State winning this one. I don't have an upset, but it comes down to the rebounds. If Grandview can keep it close in the rebounds, I don't even think that necessarily means that they win, but I think it means that the game stays within a respectable margin that we're, on a little bit of a 6-0 run, 8-0 run. Now we're talking a little differently here down the stretch. Got a few more games here. Concordia versus Bethel. It's an interesting one. A lot of these games, I went into it with a certain mindset, still open-minded, of course. And then after going through all the numbers and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, some of these games kind of actually swayed me the other way. Concordia versus Bethel of Kansas, of course. Concordia, they lost in the semifinals, while Bethel lost in the first round. So I do believe Bethel is the one that has a little more of a chip on their shoulder. They lost to the 7th seed, Tabor, which I think that's more of the Blue Jays, honestly. This was about depth, though. This was about depth. I actually believe Bethel pulls off the upset, y'all. I'm going with my first upset of this quad because their top-end talent is better than Concordia's. But the reason I also go with it is because the depth part of it. And I'll get into it in a moment here. Bethel's led by Player of the Year in the KCAC, Kendall Locke, who's averaging 18, 7, and 7 on 46% shooting from the field. The Thrashers also have her sister, Carly, who's at 14 and 7, plus Madison McKenzie, who's at 13 and 6. Combined, those three ladies are averaging, do quick maths here, 32, and 13, 45. So 45 points between those three ladies right there, plus add in 13, about 19, almost 20 rebounds. So these three players combined put up 40 and 20 almost on any given night. Right? But the depth is what is going to really make this game the difference, I think, between a close one and a blowout. Why? Concordia only have two players that are at over 10 points per game. They're at 11 apiece. It's Kirsten Wieselmeyer and Aliyah Roth. Their next four top scorers, if put on the Thrashers team, would rank 5 through 8 in terms of scoring. So basically what I just said is if you took the next four scorers, the next four top scorers from Concordia and put them on Bethel, they would be the bulk of their offense in terms of the next few, right? Kind of showing that after McKenzie, I believe actually even after one other player that I'm blanking on her name right now, and I apologize for that, the next few batch of scorers are not scoring close enough, or even close enough, let alone over what the Concordia depth of their rotation is scoring. So that's why I say the depth will be the deciding factor. Now, the reason I go Bethel is because I've seen with my own two eyes Kendall Locke do some very impressive things. Now, do I think Concordia knows that? Of course they do. Of course, you're going to go in this game understanding that we got to slow down Kendall because she's going to be the engine on both sides of the ball, honestly, that is going to make this Thrashers team go. But the top-end talent, even if you take out Kendall from a scoring standpoint, because you're not going to be able to get out her rebounding, her assists, her defense, that girl is going to be an impact on the game no matter what. You're just trying to minimize the offensive scoring part of her game. But we've seen Madison McKenzie have big games. We've seen Carly Locke have massive games. So I do believe the top-end talent, you can pick on one, maybe two, but you ain't going to get all three. So I believe that's why it's going to be hard. My key player matchup, because, in saying all that, is going to be Kendall versus both Kirsten and Aliyah. Why? Because, and it's crazy for me to say like 1v2 here in terms of the matchups, but that's just how good Kendall's been this year. When you look at it, if you put both Wieselmeyer and Roth's numbers together from a scoring standpoint, they're averaging about 22 points per game, right? That's only 4 points better than what Kendall's averaging on the season at 18. You know what I mean? And she's more than capable of putting up 20 on any given night, including a night like this one. So it's going to be a situation where your two best players, if you're Concordia, have to play like that to give yourself a chance against Kendall. Because on Kendall's off nights, she's still putting up double-figure scoring, putting up about 15 to 16 on any off night. You know what I mean? If she hits her average, that's 11. That's still, like I mentioned, only 4 points below what Kirsten and Roth are putting up on their given nights combined. So you have to understand the starting point for this game comes down to your two best players, if you're Concordia, have to play like that to kind of cancel out as best as you can from a scoring standpoint what Kendall's doing on her side of the ball, being the best player in the KCAC, right? She's coming into this game having 7 double-doubles out of the last 10 games she's played, talking about Kendall here. So she's on a heater. Bethel as a whole has been on a really, really, really good run the past 2 weeks of the KCAC to end the season, to get the second seed and to get the second auto bid that got them into the tournament. Again, Tabor, they've had a really good run, so I don't hold that against Bethel at all. I'm going Bethel for the upset because I just feel like they have the best player on the court. In a tournament-style game, in a one-and-done game, what do you want? You want the best player on the court on your side of the ball. I also believe an argument can be made that they have the second and third best player on their side of the ball in terms of this game. I believe it goes Locke, McKenzie, and then we could talk about a Concordia player. And that's why I just feel like the top end talent is too impressive, too deep from their own right, too versatile to not go with Bethel for this one in the upset. I understand I'm probably in the minority in picking Bethel to win this game, but I just have a gut feeling, and I've seen Bethel with my own two eyes a lot more than Concordia. You know, I have seen Concordia play a few times. Something speaks to me. The Thrashers, they got a chip on their shoulder for how their KCAC tournament run went. They felt like they should have been in the championship game playing against Evangel. I think it's going to be a very interesting game, and I got Bethel for the upset in this one. Last two here, and then we'll kind of give you a little bit more of a plan for the rest of the content side of things. Grande versus Rochester Christian, only conference champion versus tournament runner-up in this quad. Grande's pace is just too much, y'all. It's going to be too much. And this is another game where I didn't even put a player matchup because it really just feels like Grande's pace of play is on another level compared to what Rochester Christian can do on that side of the ball. And honestly, defense applies to this one too. Grande's pace has them at the second most points per game in the country, 94.6, on about 74 field goal attempts per game, while shooting 49% from the field. So not only are they playing fast, they're playing efficient, and they're getting a lot more attempts up than a majority of the offenses in the country. Majority of them. The only thing that I can say where you got to raise an eyebrow, you got to pay homage to what the Warriors from Rochester Christian did this year. They got that upset specialist gene in them. They've got really two impressive wins on their resume that give me hope of saying, hey, there is a world where this happens. So I'll be honest with you guys. I didn't know if Rochester Christian could beat Indiana Tech earlier this year. They did that. I didn't know if they could beat Carroll. They did that. And two national tournament teams, right? The pace is just so much, though, that I have to go Rio Grande in this one. The only way that I see the Warriors minimizing the effect of Rio Grande's pace. Three things I'm really looking at. Low turnovers. You cannot, I repeat, you cannot cough up the ball if you are Rochester Christian against Rio Grande. Because now you're giving them free buckets, free transition opportunities, maybe some and ones. It's not going to work in your favor. Not going to work in your favor. And even if they don't score, you're taking away opportunities for yourself to score. Second one, late clock execution. You have to be willing, if you are Rochester Christian, to play deep into the shot clock, because now you're taking time and opportunity away from Rio Grande to be able to go down and score in transition, in the half court, whatever the case is. And now it'll make Rio Grande feel a little more uncomfortable. And maybe instead of 74 field goal attempts, they're now at 68, 67, 66. Now that's manageable. But you can't go down there chucking up quick shots, even if it goes in. And, of course, you're going to have some of those. Momentum is a big one. I can understand all that. But from the majority aspect of this game, you cannot go in there shooting before 20 seconds. And I was about to say 15, to be honest, but I'll give y'all 20. If you shoot before 20 seconds and you don't make it, it's a double negative. Double negative, right? Now, again, it's the right shot in the system. If it's the right person taking the right shot in the system, green light, let it fly. Let it fly. But it should not be rushed. It should be a flow. It should be something that makes it feel like, okay, I can live with, if you can live, the way I always judge shot selection, can you live with that shot if it's a miss? Everybody loves a make. Everybody loves a make. Okay, I can't get mad at a make. Well, coaches might be able to, but most of the time I'm not going to get mad at a make. The question always comes, will you be fine with that miss? That's what it comes down to. There's 29 seconds left on the shot clock, and I put up a 30-foot bomb like my last name was Curry. And my coach is okay with that miss. It's a good shot. I can live with that shot. But if I do that and they have a problem with that shot, especially if it is a miss, yeah, well, okay with that, right? So you guys see what I'm talking about? You cannot get into a quick trigger type of style with Rio Grande because that is going to feed into their offense, and especially if they're threes. Because what is it? Long shots, long rebounds. If you don't hit that three, it's going to clank off the rim, bounce back to the field line, and now they're starting the transition push. It's basketball 101. The last thing I kind of talked about a little bit in some of these other games, rebounds. One shot for them, multiple shots for you. That is the recipe for Rochester Christian to give themselves a chance down the stretch, or not even give themselves a chance, but to minimize the effect of their pace from the Rio Grande side of things. With that being said, Rio Grande is on a almost 20-game winning streak. They are one of the best teams in the country. That is why they are a 2 seed. I'm not going Rochester Christian, right? I do think that there's avenues to make this game interesting, but even if they do that, even if they do everything I just said, I don't know if the Red Storm are going to be able to not win this game by more than 10 points. And that's not against the Warriors. It's more in favor of Rio Grande. There are very few teams that I would have picked over Rio Grande, and all of those teams would not see Rio Grande until about the Sweet 16, Elite 8. That's the level of opponent that they are being, right? So very, very much interested in how this game plays out, but I just don't see Rio Grande not winning this game. Last game in the Naismith quadrants. The quadrant I have deemed the redemption quadrant because a lot of these teams are looking for redemption for how their conference tournament went, or even their conference season went. I think that season part really applies in this one for Cumberlands of Kentucky, because they did have a really good win in their first round. And for Indiana Wesleyan, same thing. I think the season part of it could have been a little bit better, but very much an example of a team that turned the corner going into the new year, and they've come away with it. It's going to be a little interesting game, though, and you'll see why in a moment here. Both teams lost to the eventual conference champions in their conference tournament run. Both teams did win the first round, though, so props to them. The Pats game was a lot closer in that they played against Freed-Hardeman, lost by 8. IWU lost by 30 to Marion, which is Marion. What are you going to do? The Pats didn't have a typical season. Talking about a little bit about the Pats here. They didn't have their typical season, their first season post-Monday Sisters, in the post-Monday Sisters era, so we kind of knew it was going to be a little bit of a dip. IWU significantly improved from the fall to the spring. Not from a record standpoint. They were 7-6 in the fall, 8-6 in the spring. But again, this looks better. From a product out on the court, it looked better than what it looked like in the fall. They've been a great team all year at home. That was never the question. It was the road woes. Can we get some road wins? Can we perform better on the road? Honestly, I think this team really improved from that standpoint going into the spring and not going to the national tournament. Even without the Monday Sisters, the Pats still have an elite offense. Elite. When I say elite, they're putting up 76 points per game. They're led by Joy Kendrick, who recently crossed 1,000 points in her career, who's putting up 17 a night, a career high for her. Her previous career high was last year, where she put up 9.5 points. So she jumped significantly. She would have been one of my most improved players across the country if they had that type of award. She's had a really good season. She's a big reason that this Pats team got a chance in this game, y'all. The X factor here is going to be experience. And what I mean by that is I was led by 2 stud freshmen, Addie Hovey and Aliyah Krager, 11 and 14 respectively. The other 5 rotation players, though, are upperclassmen. Okay. The Pats are led by Joy Kendrick, who is a senior, Defensive Player of the Year, Zamara Fredericks, who is also a senior. But then the rest of their rotation, for the most part, are underclassmen. Everybody, and when I say rest of the rotation, what I mean by that, for me, this is consider you're in the rotation. Not saying you play a lot, but you're in the rotation, 15 and above minutes, right? So that means you're playing a quarter and a half. If you're playing a quarter and a half, pretty solid. I think you're in that region of being a rotation player. Now, again, if you play better in certain games, that just bumps up to 2 quarters, maybe 2 quarters and a half, whatever the case is. But quarter and a half is my cutoff. So every single one of the players, aside from Joy and Zamara, for the most part, are underclassmen, majority freshmen. So you see where I'm going with this. The experience part of this game is going to be interesting. You've got IWU, who are led by inexperienced players from a standpoint of how at this level, led by them, but they've got a lot of seniors and a lot of juniors around them to help them. And you've got Cumberlands of Kentucky, who they're led by 2 seniors. 2 of the best seniors on both sides of the ball, in terms of one being offensively focused and one being defensively focused. But then the rest of their rotation, for the most part, is underclassmen who have not been in this situation before. How does that, kind of translate? What are you looking at? All that kind of stuff. The key player match before I go to my picks, I'm going with Fredericks and Krieger. Why? Defense, offense. Why? Experience versus youth. Fredericks was the defensive player of the year in arguably the second best conference this year in terms of women's basketball, while Krieger was one of the best freshmen, I believe freshman of the year in the Crossroads, which was the best conference in women's basketball this year in the NAIA. So that's the matchup I'm looking at. They're going to be matched up pretty well. Fredericks is a great rim protector, rim deterrent, shot contester, whatever terminology you want to throw at her. It applies to all of it. She applies to all of it. So I do believe I'm going to look forward to that one-on-one matchup specifically because, again, they will be matched up a lot. Krieger can space the floor out. So now I'm looking at, can Krieger's three-point shooting ability and ability to handle the ball bring Fredericks out of the paint a little bit more than maybe the Patriots' defenses on the perimeter are used to? Because it's one thing, being a guard, I know how it feels to know that I've got a shot blocker behind me, so now I can be more aggressive. Now I can be more, gamble a little bit more here and there. Still not going crazy, but, gambling here, go for a steal there, whatever it is, because I know my big is going to clean up my mess, so to speak. But and again, I've been playing like that all year. So why would I think anything less in a national tournament? Well, now I'm doing the same thing, and I turn around and say open layup. Why? Because Fredericks now in the corner, or she was next to me even, because she had to worry about Krieger. Or in a ball screen action, she can't be in drop coverage anymore. She has to be at least up to the line of the screen, because they come off that screen, Krieger can pop, and now it's going to be an open three. Right? So there's a lot of different elements that her ability to score the ball in Krieger will make Fredericks' defensive opportunities be a little bit more, selective, or be a little bit more timely in terms of how things go. On the flip side of it, I do believe that Joy Kendrick is going to be the best offensive player in this game. Let me tell y'all something. Addie Hovey is going to have a career. I'm just let y'all know that right now. I've seen some impressive performances from her. The other part of it that really worries me is definitely the fact that the Pats or the Wildcats are not the greatest on the road. Granted, it's a neutral site, whatever you want to call it, but they're just not the greatest on the road. So how does that also play into factor here? This might be the toughest game I've had to pick this region, this quad. And I go back and forth with it because, on one hand, you got experience and you can't teach experience, but on the other hand, experience is magnified, or experience is, what's the word I'm looking for? It's magnified the deeper you get in tournament play. But the earlier you're into it, one could argue you want less experience. Why? Because you just playing with house money. Why do Cinderella teams always happen in the first round or in the second round? Because it's fresh. You know what I mean? It's that wow factor. Excuse me. So now, if that's the case, we're in the first round of the national tournament. So why wouldn't I go with the Pats? You have the best offensive player in this game, in my opinion. You got the best defensive player in the game, in my opinion. And you've got a lot of young, hungry players out on that court who late last month, a couple weeks ago, pulled off the first round upset against, in my opinion, at the time, probably the hottest team in the country, Lindsey Wilson. So with that all being said, I've just talked myself into picking the Pats. I'm going Cumberlands of Kentucky in this might be the closest game of this quad. It might be, because there's a lot of things that are going to be ifs and but and that, and that's how this game feels. There's no clear cut, well, this is going to happen. Like, this is what they do well. This is what no, it's a lot of up here. This game is going to be a mental battle for both teams. It's going to be great coaching on both sides of the ball. It's going to be about execution for the players out there on the court. How do they execute? What do they do? That type of stuff. So I'm going to go Patriots in this one. Very, very, very much going to be locked into this game. I think it's going to be a real nail biter, a thriller, maybe a classic between two of the most storied programs in NAIA women's basketball, especially in the last few years. That's going to do it for all of the opening round matchups in the Naismith Quad. I'm going to get back to it, where for first game, Freed-Hardeman versus Russ, I'm going Freed-Hardeman in that one. Langston versus Bethel, I'm going to go. I can't believe I actually forgot who I was going to go with this one, but I'm going to go Langston. I'm going to go Langston. I'm going Langston with this one. Loyola, Milligan, I'm going Loyola. Georgetown, Taylor, I'm going Georgetown. Dakota State, Grande, I'm going Dakota State. Concordia, Bethel, my first upset, I'm going Bethel. Rio Grande, Rochester Christian, I'm going Rio Grande. And Cumberlands of Kentucky, Indiana Wesleyan, I'm going Cumberlands of Kentucky. Kind of going majority chalk in this game, in this quad. Not the case in some of these other quads. We'll get to that in a moment. But like I said, this is going to be the first of a 4-episode miniseries. I guess you guys want to call it that. Not in terms of length of the video, obviously, but in terms of the duration. Again, I wanted to space everything out. Did not want to bombard all of you guys at once. 4 hours. It took me 50 minutes, almost an hour to do this one quad. I'm not going to do that to y'all. So we'll do a quad every single day. Probably still gonna have our Friday episode though, and that might be more of a general thing where I talk Cinderellas, I talk teams that can make a deep upset, a deep run. I talk what 1 seed could not make the Final Four, stuff like that. So I think that's what I'm gonna save for Friday's episode. So right now we're doing quads. It also gives me opportunity to just deep dive into each quad and see, okay, I can't really make those picks without knowing a little bit more about all these regions, all these quads. So I hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. With that being said, we're almost to 1,000 subscribers, 1,000 followers on our Instagram. Make sure you guys go over there, smash the Instagram follow button. We really appreciate all the support over there. We're almost to 100 subscribers on our YouTube. Could we get to that by the end of by the start of the national tournament? It's gonna be a tough sell. Right now, I believe we're at 75, so we're 25 away. But there's a world. All I'm saying is, I'm gonna throw that out there, see what you guys do with it, what you please. But I do appreciate all the support. Make sure you guys do like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.